The wind screamed across the jagged cliffs of Carrion 5, carrying the sharp smell of burning metal. Ronan's heart pounded as alarms blared from the colony's sensors. He had never seen readings like this. One of the deep canyons had erupted with a heat signature bigger than any native predator. Something huge was coming. Ronan sprinted across the observation deck, boots scraping against metal panels, eyes scanning the sky. The baby pod, the last transport from the shuttle, was dangling from a broken support beam, swaying dangerously. Without thinking, he dove, catching it in his arms as the deck trembled beneath a blast of heat that melted a nearby railing. Sparks rained around him. The sky split with a deafening roar. A shadow darkened the colony, stretching over buildings and dust clouds. Ronan froze. He had read about the planet's legends, a massive, fire-breathing creature that lived in the high canyons. No one had ever survived an encounter. And yet, here it was gliding over the colony like a storm-given flesh. Its scales shimmered black and crimson, each movement precise and terrifying. The baby whimpered, clutching his neck. Ronan pressed it close, scanning for any weakness in the creature's movement. Its eyes glowed, intelligent and piercing. Not blind rage, calculated observation. Ronan's mind raced. He had seconds to act, or both the baby and the colony would be lost. He ran toward the edge of the platform, hoping to guide the pod toward shelter, but the dragon, or whatever it was, descended rapidly. Heat licked the metal beneath him. He shouted warnings to the nearby colonists, but the sound was swallowed by the creature's roar. Then came the strangest moment. Instead of attacking, it paused. Its massive head lowered, and the baby, sensing no danger, crawled instinctively toward the shadow it cast. Ronan's stomach twisted. Every instinct screamed for him to grab the baby back, but he hesitated. Something in the creature's gaze was different. Curious, not hostile. The baby's tiny hands touched the rough, scaled skin, and the dragon shivered slightly as if surprised. A low hum resonated from its throat, vibrating through the ground. Ronan felt it through his boots, an unspoken warning or a signal. "Don't move," he whispered to the baby. His own voice trembled, though he tried to mask it with authority. "Stay safe." The colonists watched from behind barriers, wide-eyed and frozen. Some gripped weapons, unsure whether to fire or flee. Ronan's fingers itched toward his own blaster, but something told him it would be a mistake. One wrong move, and the dragon's patience could vanish. Minutes, or seconds, passed. The dragon's massive wings twitched, then flexed. Smoke curled from its nostrils. Its gaze never left the baby. And then, something remarkable happened. The dragon lowered itself further, letting the child crawl fully into its shadow. Not a claw, not a bite, not a hiss. Complete stillness. Ronan exhaled slowly, his grip on the baby easing just a fraction. His mind struggled to process it. No one had ever spoken of dragons showing mercy, especially not to a human. His pulse raced with awe and terror. How could this be? Why now? A sudden crash jolted him back to reality. A section of the observation deck gave way, sending debris clattering toward the canyon below. Ronan shoved the baby backward, rolling to shield it. Sparks sizzled against his jacket. The dragon lifted its head, eyes narrowing, not in anger at him, but as if tracking something unseen in the rubble. Its massive tail whipped across the deck, flattening a support pillar in a controlled sweep, keeping debris away from the baby. Ronan stumbled to his knees, heart hammering, and whispered, "You're protecting him?" The dragon's hum deepened, almost like a growl of agreement. Its shadow shifted over the colony, moving with deliberate grace. Each time a small piece of debris fell, it adjusted its position, always shielding the child. Ronan's mind refused to accept it. A creature built to destroy, acting as a guardian? Then, without warning, a tremor rocked the canyon walls. From the far side of the cliff, another heat signature flared, much bigger, brighter, and angrier. The first dragon stiffened, wings spreading, scales glinting like molten steel. It hissed sharply, low and warning, and its eyes flicked toward the new threat. Ronan clutched the baby tightly. He realized with a jolt that the danger was far from over. The dragon that had shown mercy might now face a rival. Something bigger, something even more unpredictable. And the colony and the baby were directly in the line of fire. A streak of fire blazed across the sky from the distant canyon, cutting toward them. The first dragon flared its wings, muscles rippling under dark scales, and let out a roar that shook the air. Ronan felt it deep in his chest. This was no ordinary predator. It was a sentient force, alert, alive, and capable of decisions no human could anticipate. Ronan's eyes met the dragon's again. It seemed to look into him, not with hunger but understanding. Then the shadow shifted slightly as if nudging the baby closer to safety. But the other heat signature grew, crackling with energy, and the sky darkened as more unknown threats approached. Ronan's jaw tightened. His mind raced. He had seconds to protect the baby, the colony, and now, somehow, this dragon too. One wrong step, one careless move, and everything would burn. And then he realized, the dragon wasn't the only mystery here. Whatever was coming next, it would test not just the limits of human courage, but the fragile trust between species in ways no one had ever imagined. Ronan didn't wait. He sprinted across the fractured deck, clutching the baby close. Sparks rained from broken conduits, and the heat from the dragon's body made the metal beneath his boots almost too hot to stand on. The first streak of fire from the distant canyon had vanished, but its warning lingered, a sense of approaching doom that made every nerve in his body scream. "Move now," he shouted at the scattered colonists. Some obeyed, stumbling over twisted metal as fear pushed them forward. A few froze, paralyzed, staring at the massive dragon whose shadow had swallowed the baby. Ronan grabbed them by their collars and yanked them toward the emergency shelter. The dragon's wings twitched, each movement deliberate. It followed the baby, stepping with precision to shield it from falling debris and the heat radiating from the ruined deck. Ronan watched in disbelief. Its tail, long and whip-like, swept back and forth, knocking over broken scaffolding before it could crush anyone. The colony's guns remained unused. Even firing might provoke disaster. "Ronan, what is that thing?" a technician gasped, voice trembling. Her hands shook as she clutched a wrench for comfort. "I don't know," he admitted, breathing hard. "But it's protecting the baby. We don't touch it. We follow its lead." The distant roar returned, louder this time, vibrating through the canyon. The second heat signature was moving closer, faster, angrier, like a wildfire on wings. The first dragon stiffened, scales bristling, and emitted a low growl that made the colonists flinch. Ronan felt it in his chest. This was no ordinary predator. It was aware, calculating, ready for combat if necessary. Ronan made a choice. He couldn't rely on the dragon alone. He sprinted to the storage bay and grabbed a set of signal flares. "Keep the baby low," he yelled, kneeling behind a metal barricade. He ignited one, tossing it toward the approaching threat. The flare shot upward, a bright streak cutting through the smoky sky. The second dragon paused mid-flight, eyes glowing, wings flexing. The first dragon mirrored Ronan's maneuver instinctively, moving closer to the baby as if to shield it from observation. Ronan's pulse raced. He was communicating with it, without words, without sound. Every motion mattered. Every second counted. Then the unexpected happened. From the canyon floor, small alien predators emerged, drawn to the heat and the commotion. They were fast, insect-like creatures, their chitin glinting with a strange, almost metallic sheen. They surged toward the colony in waves, snapping mandibles and screeching in unison. Colonists panicked, some firing weapons indiscriminately. Ronan knew that would only provoke the dragons. He grabbed a flare, aiming it at the nearest wave. He fired. The flare arced, hit the creatures and exploded, scattering them. The first small victory sent a ripple of hope through the surviving colonists. But more predators poured in, faster, relentless. Ronan's eyes darted to the baby, now safely nestled in the shadow of the first dragon. He whispered, "You're doing more than I imagined. Stay with him." The dragon shifted slightly, acknowledging him with a subtle rumble. That small response, tiny, almost human in its intelligence, sent a shiver down Ronan's spine. This creature wasn't a mindless beast. It could reason, learn, and protect. The second dragon landed on a nearby cliff, massive talons carving into stone. Heat radiated from its body, brighter and more intense than anything Ronan had seen. It scanned the first dragon, wings spreading to full span. A hiss escaped both creatures, low and threatening, vibrating through the canyon. The colony trembled under the pressure, dust falling from the walls. Ronan realized they were trapped between two forces beyond human control. If the dragons clashed, the colony would be obliterated. He had to act, fast. He scanned the environment, spotting a narrow canyon ridge leading to a safer observation post. It was risky, but it might give them leverage. "Follow me," he shouted, leading the colonists through twisted metal and falling debris. The first dragon moved with them, shadowing the ridge, shielding the baby. It flared its wings to knock back smaller predators, each beat sending gusts that propelled the group forward. Ronan felt a surge of awe and fear. They were alive because this impossible creature had chosen to protect them. Halfway along the ridge, Debris from the previous tremor shifted, sending a rock slide barreling toward the group. Ronan dove, pushing the baby into the dragon's shadow. The dragon's tail lashed out, smashing the rocks aside with precise force. Small cheers rose from the colonists, but they were short-lived. The second dragon screeched, launching a fiery attack toward the ridge. Ronan's mind raced. The ridge was narrow. If the fire hit, everyone would be lost. He grabbed an old metal panel and reflected the incoming heat toward a nearby wall, creating a momentary shield. Sparks flew, but it worked. The baby giggled in surprise, and for a fraction of a second, the first dragon's hum softened, almost like a laugh. The ridge ended at the safer post. Ronan led everyone forward, hearts pounding, sweat and dust mixing on their faces. The first dragon landed beside the baby, lowering its massive head. Ronan realized something extraordinary. This was no longer a creature of destruction. It had a choice, and it had chosen mercy. But the second dragon wasn't finished. Its eyes glowed and its wings beat faster, sending gusts that rattled the post. Ronan's pulse spiked. The ridge might offer temporary safety, but the bigger threat loomed. The first dragon stepped protectively in front of the baby, scales gleaming in the dim light, and let out a warning roar. The sound echoed through the canyon, reverberating against walls, shaking dust from above. Ronan clenched his fists. He had survived impossible odds once. He could survive them again. But the question remained, how would they face the second dragon, and what unimaginable choice would the first dragon make next? A streak of molten fire split the sky again, closer this time. Ronan's eyes widened. The battle, and the mystery, was far from over. Ronan's breath came in sharp gasps, dust and ash coating his face. The first dragon crouched low, wings spread wide, shielding the baby with its enormous frame. The ridge beneath their feet trembled as the second dragon circled above, casting a dark, pulsing shadow across the colony. Its eyes glowed like molten metal, sharp and calculating. Every instinct screamed that if it attacked, nothing would survive. Ronan knew hesitation would be fatal. He scanned the ridge quickly, his mind calculating. The second dragon's movements were too predictable, its aggression raw but direct. The first dragon, on the other hand, had shown intelligence and restraint. If he could somehow communicate even in small gestures, maybe he could guide it to act strategically. He crouched beside the baby, whispering, "Stay low. Follow my lead." The baby clutched his neck, eyes wide with fear and fascination. Ronan's hand slid to the ground, tapping a rhythm, creating vibrations. A subtle hum returned from the first dragon. It shifted slightly, lowering its head as if acknowledging the signal. Ronan's plan formed instantly. He would lure the second dragon closer, forcing it into a narrow canyon where the first dragon could defend and counter with precision. But executing it meant taking a massive risk. He had to move, drawing the second dragon's attention without exposing the baby to danger. He whispered to the colonists, "We move in 3, 2, 1. He darted forward, rolling over jagged metal and rock. The second dragon's gaze locked onto him instantly, a scream of fire erupting from its maw. Sparks hissed across the ridge as the attack missed by mere inches. Ronan felt the heat sear the air around him, adrenaline making his muscles tense and sharp. The first dragon followed instinctively, sliding forward to shield the baby. Ronan realized with awe that it understood the plan, even without spoken words. Its wings flared, tail sweeping across the ridge to block debris and aggressive predators drawn by the commotion. Ronan's mind raced. The canyon ahead was narrow, forcing the second dragon to slow and adjust mid-flight. If the first dragon could anticipate its trajectory, it could turn the incoming threat into a controlled confrontation. Every detail mattered. One mistake and the ridge, the colony, and the baby would be lost. A sudden realization struck him. The second dragon wasn't acting blindly. It was intelligent too, observing, calculating, waiting. The first dragon, however, was not just defensive. It was analyzing Ronan's movements, reacting to the baby's presence, and now anticipating the rival's attack. This wasn't just survival, it was strategy. Humanity and instinct were shaping the outcome together. Ronan dropped behind a jagged outcrop, signaling with a flick of his hand. The first dragon responded, lowering its wings slightly, almost guiding the second dragon along a specific path. Ronan's heart pounded. He had never been part of anything like this, alive, calculating, and vulnerable at the same time. He realized humans had a role here beyond fear. They could think, adapt, and influence the impossible. The second dragon dove, claws extended, fire ready. Ronan's signal flared. The first dragon lunged forward, intercepting with a sweep of its tail and a terrifying roar that rattled stone. Sparks erupted where claws met scales. For a moment the world seemed to freeze. The baby whimpered but remained in the protective shadow. Ronan's pulse raced. Every second was a lifetime. And then came the twist. The second dragon halted mid-attack, almost as if confused. Its eyes flicked to the baby. Ronan's stomach clenched. Could a human child truly be affecting such a creature? The first dragon's hum deepened, almost like a low vibration of warning. The second dragon retreated slightly, reassessing. Ronan felt a flicker of hope. The baby had done something no human or colonist could, something that touched even the most fearsome predator. Ronan knew he had to exploit the moment. He moved forward carefully, placing small flares along the ridge, creating a path that would guide the second dragon where he needed it to go. Each flare burst with a tiny explosion, catching the rival's attention. The first dragon mirrored him, subtly nudging the second dragon along the canyon's narrow path. The micro payoff was immediate. The second dragon became trapped in the canyon wall's shadow, unable to maneuver without risking collision. The first dragon's stance grew more confident, wings flaring in dominance but without aggression toward the baby. Ronan exhaled, heart pounding, realizing they had gained a fragile advantage. But the danger wasn't gone. The second dragon roared, wings slashing against rock, sending dust and stones tumbling. The ridge beneath Ronan's feet vibrated, and a chunk of metal slid dangerously close to the baby. Without thinking, he dove, rolling and catching the child, pressing it back into the first dragon's protective shadow. A low vibration thrummed through the ground. The dragon's eyes locked on him, almost in silent acknowledgement. Courage mattered. Ronan straightened, looking at both dragons. One had shown mercy, intelligence, and restraint. The other was unpredictable, powerful, and calculating. And the baby, the smallest, most vulnerable human, had somehow become the key. He realized something extraordinary. Humans didn't just survive because of strength. They survived because of courage, empathy, and the ability to act under impossible pressure. The ridge trembled again, louder this time, as if the canyon itself were reacting to the dragon's battle. Dust swirled violently. Ronan's jaw tightened. They had gained a momentary advantage, but what came next could change everything. A sudden, piercing screech split the air. From the shadows beyond the canyon walls, another heat signature flared, smaller but fast, moving with intelligence and purpose. Ronan's heart leapt. The first two dragons were not the only threats, or perhaps allies. Something else was coming, and this time the rules were unknown. He tightened his grip on the baby, whispering, "We're not done yet, whatever happens we survive. Together." The first dragon's hum deepened again, wings twitching in anticipation. The second dragon hissed, tension crackling through the canyon. Ronan's eyes darted toward the incoming heat signature. Every sense screamed danger, but also opportunity. One wrong move, one hesitation, and everything could collapse. And yet, for the first time, Ronan understood something remarkable. Humans could influence even the most impossible creatures, and courage could shift the outcome of what seemed unstoppable. The next moment would prove whether that was enough. The ridge shook violently under Ronan's boots. Dust and debris fell from the cliffs above, mixing with the acrid smoke from scorched metal. The first dragon crouched low over the baby, wings flared like a protective canopy, muscles rippling under scales that glinted crimson in the dim light. Its eyes scanned every movement, every shadow, every flicker of heat. Ronan felt his pulse thundering in his chest. This wasn't a fight he could control, it was a storm he had to navigate. The second dragon screeched, claws scraping stone, fire flickering from its maw. Its approach was calculated now, each movement precise, as if it were testing the first dragon's defenses. Ronan's mind raced. If they clashed openly, the colony would be obliterated. He had to act, fast, decisively, cleverly. He dropped to one knee behind a jagged metal slab, holding the baby tight. His fingers found a flare gun, but this time he needed more than distraction. He scanned the ridge. A narrow overhang jutted from the cliff, creating a choke point. If the first dragon could hold position there, it could force the second dragon to attack in a confined space, limiting its power. But guiding it required timing, precision, and courage beyond what most humans could muster. "Stay low," he whispered to the baby. The child's wide eyes blinked up at him. Ronan's stomach twisted with fear and determination. He couldn't fail, not for the baby, not for the dragon, not for the colony. He ran forward, sprinting along the ridge, flare gun in hand, shouting and waving to catch the second dragon's attention. The creature's glowing eyes locked onto him instantly, wings whipping the air into violent gusts. Heat washed over him. Ronan dove to the side, narrowly avoiding a sweeping tail. Sparks sizzled along the ridge where the tail struck. The first dragon responded instantly, positioning itself between the baby and the incoming threat. Its wings beat with controlled power, knocking smaller debris and alien predators aside, creating a temporary buffer zone. Ronan's heart pounded. He had never seen a creature react with such precise coordination. It was as if it understood him, and the stakes, in ways that defied human comprehension. A deafening roar split the air. The second dragon lunged forward, claws extended, fire roaring from its mouth. Ronan rolled, grabbing the baby's harness to shield it. Sparks flared as molten stone from the ridge cracked under the impact. The first dragon lunged to intercept, tail snapping with surgical precision, knocking the second dragon off balance. A wave of heat swept over Ronan, nearly staggering him, but he pushed forward, placing a flare on the ridge to guide the rival's movements. The baby whimpered but remained pressed into the shadow. Ronan felt the creature's scales shift beneath him, the low vibration of its hum echoing in his chest. It was aware, alive, and reacting with more intelligence than any human, or alien, he had encountered. His courage had sparked this chain of protection. His quick thinking had orchestrated a fragile advantage. Then came the unexpected. From the canyon floor, a swarm of smaller alien predators surged upward, drawn to the chaos. They clattered across rocks, snapping mandibles and swarming toward the ridge. Ronan's pulse jumped. There was no time to retreat. Without thinking, he kicked a metal beam into their path, sending sparks and debris scattering, temporarily halting their advance. The first dragon adjusted instinctively, wings slapping downward to shield the baby while knocking predators aside. Each strike was precise, measured, defense not aggression. Ronan's mind whirled. One more wrong move, one hesitation, and the ridge, the colony, and the baby would be lost. He ducked under the dragon's wing, placing his hand on its rough scales. A vibration pulsed through him, almost like a connection. For a heartbeat, fear gave way to a strange clarity. He and the creature were in this together. Courage, intelligence, and empathy were all that stood between survival and annihilation. The second dragon roared, claws tearing the ridge, fire searing the air. The first dragon surged forward, wings flaring, pushing the rival into the canyon's narrow choke point. Ronan's quick thinking, combined with the first dragon's precision, created a trap. The second dragon's power was now limited, forced into calculated strikes. Ronan exhaled sharply, adrenaline burning in his veins. He could see the tiny shifts, the rival adjusting its trajectory, the first dragon correcting its stance. They were locked in a deadly dance, and he was the silent conductor, guiding the movements with his decisions and signals. Then came the micro cliffhanger. From the canyon walls, the smaller heat signature from Part 3 reappeared, moving with intelligence and speed closer than before. Ronan's stomach sank. Another unknown variable. The first two dragons were dangerous enough, but this new presence could turn the balance entirely. Ronan gritted his teeth, holding the baby tight. The first dragon hissed a warning, wings flaring, muscles coiled for action. The second dragon struggled in the choke point, tail snapping, fire flickering. And the new heat signature drew closer, faster than anything Ronan had anticipated. The ridge trembled again. Dust rained down, metal groaned, alien predators swarmed, and the second dragon lashed out in frustration. The first dragon growled, protective instincts blazing, while the baby sat quietly in its shadow, oblivious to the danger, yet somehow anchoring the creature's focus. Ronan's mind raced, calculating probabilities, weighing risks. He realized in that charged instant that survival wasn't about strength alone. It was about courage, empathy, intelligence, and the ability to act under pressure. Humanity had shaped the outcome so far. But could it shape the next moment? The ridge shook violently, a massive boulder cracking loose above them. Sparks and dust exploded downward. Ronan pressed the baby into the dragon's protective shadow, shielding it with his own body. The first dragon roared in challenge, lifting its wings to deflect falling debris. The second dragon screeched, claws slashing toward the ridge, fire igniting nearby rocks. And then, just as a massive stone threatened to crush them all, the first dragon's roar changed, low, deep, almost thoughtful. Its wings shifted, guiding the boulder harmlessly aside. Ronan realized with awe, this creature wasn't merely defending. It was calculating, anticipating, acting with purpose and intelligence in a way no human, or alien, had expected. Ronan's heart raced. The ridge held for now. The baby was safe. But the new threat, the smaller heat signature, was closing in faster than either dragon could react. One wrong move now and everything would collapse. The fight wasn't over. And Ronan knew deep in his chest that the next moment would test every ounce of human courage, every instinct, and the bond between species in ways no one could have imagined. Ronan pressed the baby close, heart hammering, as the first dragon flexed its massive wings in a low crouch. The ridge had held barely. Dust and debris hung in the air like smoke from a dying fire. The second dragon struggled in the narrow canyon, fire sputtering and claws scraping against rock, unable to maneuver freely. For the first time, Ronan realized that the impossible was possible, not because of brute force but because humans could think, adapt, and act where instinct alone would fail. The baby giggled softly, reaching for the scales of the first dragon. The creature lowered its enormous head, letting the tiny fingers brush against its rough hide. Ronan felt his chest tighten. The dragon, a force of destruction no one had dared approach, had shown mercy. It had chosen protection over power. Humanity, through courage, intelligence, and empathy, had made that choice possible. Ronan exhaled, scanning the canyon. The second dragon roared, flames sputtering in frustration as it attempted to climb over the narrow ridge. The first dragon stepped forward, wings flaring, tail snapping like a whip to block its rival. Ronan understood. The creature had learned the humans' plan, mirrored their decisions, and acted in unison with them. They were not just allies, they were partners in survival. The ridge trembled one final time as the smaller heat signature from before zipped between the canyon walls. Ronan froze. It was tiny, fast, almost like a scout. But it wasn't hostile. It hovered above the baby for a moment, inspecting, then zipped away, leaving the first dragon's shadow undisturbed. The hum from the first dragon deepened, almost like a purr of relief. The threat had passed for now. Ronan allowed himself a long breath, knees weak, arms aching. Around him, colonists scrambled, checking each other for injuries, marveling at the impossible scene. The first dragon remained still, wings half extended, guarding the baby. Its eyes met Ronan's, and for the first time he felt an unmistakable intelligence in that gaze. It wasn't just survival instinct, it was understanding. Unbelievable, a technician muttered, voice trembling. It protected him. Ronan nodded, watching the baby reach out and touch the dragon's snout. Not just him, he whispered. It protected all of us. He realized that the baby's innocence had done what no weapon could. Its presence had bridged a gulf between human and creature, creating trust where there had been only fear. The second dragon finally pulled back, wings beating furiously as it retreated to a distant cliff, smoke curling from its nostrils. It had not been defeated by force. It had been outmaneuvered, guided by human strategy and courage. The first dragon's hum softened, and it shifted slightly, wrapping its shadow fully around the baby as if promising safety. Ronan lowered himself to one knee, letting the baby crawl into his arms. He felt the heat of the dragon radiating across the ridge, a steady presence that had become both shield and teacher. He whispered, "We did it, together." The baby cooed, oblivious to the danger they had just faced, trusting instinctively in the creature and the humans around it. Around the ridge, colonists began murmuring in disbelief, glancing at the dragons with a mix of awe and fear. No one had ever seen this before. Legends had warned of fire, death, and destruction. But here mercy, intelligence, and choice had prevailed. Humans had survived, yes, but they had also inspired survival in something far greater than themselves. Ronan felt a subtle vibration through the ridge. The first dragon flexed its wings, stepping forward slightly, nudging the baby closer to him. It was a silent acknowledgement. The bond had formed, fragile but real. The child had changed the impossible, reshaped the natural order. And in that moment, Ronan understood something profound. Courage wasn't just physical. It was moral, intellectual, and compassionate. Humans had survived because they acted wisely, bravely, and with heart. A sudden movement from the canyon floor caught Ronan's eye. The smaller heat signature flickered again, faster, more deliberate. It zipped along a hidden ridge, observing, almost like a scout preparing a report. Ronan's chest tightened with anticipation. There was more to come. The first dragon growled softly, almost like a warning to the unknown presence. He realized with a shiver that the adventure wasn't over. The canyon still held mysteries, challenges, and unknown threats. He looked down at the baby, smiling softly despite exhaustion. "You've done more than anyone could imagine," he whispered. "You've taught us, something impossible." The baby giggled, reaching for the dragon once more. The dragon lowered its head, letting the tiny hand brush its snout again, a final silent promise of protection. Ronan rose, holding the baby tight. He turned to the colonists. "We survived today because we acted. Because we didn't freeze. Because we showed courage when it mattered." His voice carried across the ridge, steady and firm. "And because humans are more than their fear. We adapt. We think. We care. That is why we endure." The first dragon let out a final, resonant hum. Its wings stretched high, then slowly folded as it shifted to follow Ronan and the baby, moving with deliberate grace. The colony exhaled collectively, relief and awe mixing in the smoky air. Ronan's eyes scanned the horizon. The second dragon had disappeared beyond the canyon walls. The small heat signature was gone as well, leaving only questions. What had it been? Was it a scout, a messenger, or the beginning of something far larger? He didn't know, but one thing was clear: humans had changed the outcome of a battle no one should have survived. As he led the baby and colonists down the ridge towards safety, the first dragon's shadow stretched over them, silent and protective. Ronan's mind raced with possibilities. The canyon had survived today, but its mysteries remained. One day they would face them again. And when they did, they would be ready. For now, though, the baby cooed, the dragon hummed softly, and humans had proven that courage, intelligence, and empathy could shine even in the face of overwhelming odds. And deep in the distant canyon, something stirred, something fast, intelligent, and watching. Ronan's heart clenched, knowing that this was only the beginning. The adventure wasn't over.